This is just kind of an overview of like my whole journey from being a kid to the mental health stuff getting really bad to oh gosh, excuse me, to finding some solutions and answers and basically getting back to living a normal life again, which is crazy. There was really a long stretch of time when I did not think I would make it this far, and I was just relentless every day looking at new options, reading different books, talking to different counselors, therapists, scouring the internet. And I feel like I got really lucky. Like I got blessed. Solution finally presented itself, or more so a person. And like the whole story is pretty wild. But basically, it all begins when I was about 8 years old. I remember waking up in my bedroom, bunk beds, and something just not feeling right. I remember going to school and just thinking, like, oh, that was so weird. Like, I'm glad that that thing went away. And I didn't really know what it was, but actually, one thing before I like really dive into the weeds on this story, I just wanted to say that if you have misophonia, um, there are some triggers that I'm going to explain in this. And so, if you don't want to watch it, if you have misophonia, you don't want to watch this, let me know, and I'll make you a version that's completely trigger free, so you can still watch it and learn all the stuff. But yeah, okay. So, anyways, like 8 years old, just remember having this thought of just like something is not right, it's off, and me being grateful that like halfway through a day of school it had gone away. Um, and I remember like a few weeks later, it's that same sensation. And at the time, I had no idea what it was. Like neither of my parents struggled with any mental health stuff. It was just never talked about. And so it's like I feel like when you have just no awareness of it. You don't even know like what to label it other than just like scary. I don't know. But when I was in sixth grade, so I was 12, that's when it became more so what felt like permanent. Um, Seemingly overnight again, all of a sudden I couldn't stand the texture of paper, like the feeling of paper. So whenever I would touch paper or most other dry materials, my hands would get extremely clammy, and it was like I developed this huge aversion to dry materials. So if I had to do my homework, I would legitimately lick the bottom of my hand, which is kind of crazy, before putting it down on the piece of paper, and it would still bother me, but it was like that was better than just having it touch the dry. And very unfortunately, additionally to that, I also could no longer stand the sound of paper rustling, a very specific paper rustling sound, which I won't detail if you do struggle with misophonia. But as you can imagine, this made life just torture. It was like, because most of your life, I feel like as a kid, is school. It's like, or maybe not most of it, but you spend a lot of time in school. And so me not being able to stand the texture of paper or the sound of it, it was just like a nightmare. And it was just, um, it was one of those things where like I told my parents about it, and they were like they didn't really know what to do. And full disclosure, I'm gonna say some stuff about like things that happened between me and my parents. We have a great relationship now. I really love them. So things have like really turned around, but I don't like blame them for any of this. I think for people that have never dealt with any sort of mental health issue, it's a pretty normal response. But they essentially told me just to like get over it and that it was weird. And I was just like, awesome. That's awesome. I will do that. But where was I? So, so I basically just kind of sucked it up, and like I knew I had this thing, and it was like I don't know. Fortunately, that paper sound it wasn't being made like 24/7 when you're in school, but it was like I'd probably hear it like over 100 times a day, so it was a lot. And if you've heard of misophonia, or if you know someone that has it, but essentially what it is, it's where like really ordinary sounds make you so angry, and it's not just like a little angry, like it's annoying. It's like that person that's making that sound has literally just like slapped you across. Okay, you know what it is? It's like when you bite your lip 3 times. It's like the first time you're like, "Ow," and the second time you're like, "Ugh," and then the third time you're like, "Oh my gosh!" It's literally like that. Essentially, is what it is. Um, it's like that level of rage whenever you hear this sound. So fast forwarding a couple years, high school. Um, My freshman year of high school was like a little rough. I went to a big public school. I didn't know too many people because like the younger school I went to kind of like fed into a bunch of like random high schools. And so I just my self-esteem wasn't super high and basically got bullied a little bit and that wasn't fun. And actually I'm just gonna cut this out because that doesn't really contribute to the overall mental story. Okay, fast forward a few years to high school and it's gotten worse, the sound stuff. And also, it's like in high school, grades matter more because it's like if you want to go to college, you kind of need to have like good grades and, good SAT score, yada, yada, all that fun stuff. And so at that point, it was like, my parents had known I've been dealing with it. I like started to bring it up again just more seriously, and they're like, okay, well, let's get you to the doctor. Let's go to the doctor and talk about it and go to the doctor. He diagnoses me with OCD and puts me on something called Paxil, which I don't know how often Paxil is used today, but I think I was like 15 at the time, maybe 16. Actually, yeah, I was 16 because I could drive. And I was on Paxil for like 2 months, maybe. And I just remembered feeling like super, super sad on it. And so I stopped taking it. And just like cold turkeyed it. Didn't I even like when I got put on Paxil, I didn't know that it was like an SSRI or whatever it is. Like I still had like I was still so unaware of like what mental health was. Like I didn't even know what anxiety or depression were or OCD. Like I didn't even ask. It was just kind of like a I remember the doctor just being saying to my mom like, "Yeah, it's kind of common. It's this kind of like OCD, but he'll probably grow out of it. We'll like put him on this in the meantime until he grows out of it." So unfortunately, I didn't grow out of it. And this meant a couple of things. For one, school continued to just be incredibly difficult. And two, I had to find other ways to cope, which again, due to my unawareness to like what mental health was, and I didn't even know this was it at the time, but I essentially started self-harming, like pretty bad. But I didn't know it was self-harming. It was essentially just like um, really intense, like picking at my fingernails, like until they would bleed, basically, and like worse. Um, and that was just kind of how I coped with the sounds and everything. I would literally like go to the bathroom in the middle of class and just like pick at my fingernails like badly. Um, and it was like, it's just I don't know, it's so crazy how like when you're going through like suppressed pain, I don't know, you naturally kind of find these coping mechanisms that aren't necessarily healthy, but I didn't know it was like a bad thing at the time. I was just like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And fast forwarding again, we go to college. So at this point, I'm like, all right, I have this thing. It's pretty severe, but it's not so severe that I like legitimately can't sit through school. Um, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go to college, get a degree in something where I can get a job, so I literally never have to be around paper again. And like my kids will not read books. I was like, that was like my mentality essentially. I was like, if I can just get through college, like I will be chilling. So that was the plan. And after my junior year of college, I started having really severe panic attacks, which I had never ever had, like anxiety or a panic attack before. And I was still very like uh not perceiving the issues I was struggling with as like mental health issues. I was like, oh, it's just like this like weird thing I have, like some people get born without arms and legs. I got stuck with this like weird sound thing. So it's just my thing. I'm gonna power through it. But when the panic attacks set in, that was when like my whole entire world got completely flipped upside down. Because suddenly I was working this internship. I had like busted my butt to get this internship, and I finally get it. I'm like super happy. Started this internship, and I started having panic attacks like 2 weeks in. And the first thing I do is I go to the emergency room. End up going to the emergency room like 3 days in a row from these panic attacks, and I end up going to this doctor. It was like a family friend of my parents knew like a doctor nearby that they said was good with this kind of stuff. So I went to see him, and he basically was like, "I'm gonna put you on SSRIs." And I was like, "Whoa, hold the phone here. I do not need like I don't have depression or anxiety. Like what?" SSRIs, it just really freaked me out, especially because of the bad reaction I'd had to Paxil in high school. I suddenly, we talked and he was like, "Oh, okay, I see. Like you were on this dates, like da da da." Da." And so the whole like SSRI thing just really freaked me out. And he was like, "All right, well, I think this is just like a temporary thing. I'm just gonna put you on Ativan, which is a benzodiazepine." And he said, just take it as needed. And I was like, "Cool." So that's what I did. I basically took this benzo like daily for 2 weeks, and then things were things were okay. Like that honestly was the crutch that allowed me to finish school without going completely insane. And so I ended up getting, but it like derailed my entire life completely. Like I had these plans. I was really into making music. I was really into like entrepreneurship. Um, and the most beautiful thing about, I would say, like the mental health stuff getting worse is that it really launched me into like a quarter life crisis and like kind of like forced me to re-examine my life. And so I started reading all of these books on like nutrition, Buddhism, anything like mental health related, mind, body, gut health, brain health, all that's like anything you could think of. I was reading it, I was watching it, I was consuming it like day and night. And I'm working this first job and I'm living with a group of my friends in a house in LA after school. And literally I would go to work and then I would go home and just like research the mental stuff and like how to get over it. And it was pretty hard. Like we still had fun, but I think my friends thought I was crazy because I was like constantly just like ordering supplements. I was literally like making my own kombucha, like anything to try and like figure out the gut health, brain health stuff. I gave up alcohol, gave up gluten and dairy. Um, for a while, I eat gluten and dairy now and drink occasionally now, but not often. And yeah, I just fully oriented my life around this mental stuff. And I was like basically working and I was like spending all of my money I was making at work on these like specialists because a lot of these, it's like outside of your like primary care physician, you essentially a lot of it is just like out of pocket. Like the insurance doesn't cover it. Anything that's like, you know, acupuncture or just like anything that's like, I feel like a deviation from just like, regular medicine is not often covered, or if it is, it's still pretty expensive. But I was trying all sorts of stuff. And that was when I after a period of time completely crashed. I remember I was like trying these supplements because I was like, oh, maybe I'm just like really deficient in B vitamins. And I tried this one form, I think it was like B12, and I took it and I went to work and I just could not stop crying. I was like sitting on my desk and like work was going well and I just could not stop crying. And I remember my friend, one of my really good friends who I lived with, he became kind of like my brother because we lived together and worked together. And I asked him if to like go on a walk with me, and I just could not stop crying. And I was like, "Hey, man, like I need to like throw in the towel here. Like I need to get some serious help." And essentially, I just told him like, "Hey, I'm gonna move back home with my parents." And he got it, super supportive. He had kind of seen the whole journey from the get go, and so that day I called my parents and basically told them like, "Hey, I've been thinking what you can infer those thoughts for quite some time now. I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything and I still just feel awful. I can't sleep, but I'm exhausted all the time. Like I have friends, this or that, but I'm just feel broken. Um, and they essentially just were like, okay. And they still at that point, I don't think they really got it. I think it's just one of those things where when you haven't dealt with something yourself, it is difficult to like, I don't know, see from the outside and what someone might be experiencing or dealing with. And so it just their response immediately like wasn't great. They were kind of like, when are you going to get back to work? Like you like what are you doing with your life? Like all this stuff. And it was kind of like it really hurt me a lot at the time because I was like, hey, I just confided in you. I have been like struggling with this for years. Like at that point, it had been like 10 years, like more than 10 years since like the nexus of all of it. So that really hurt me a lot. And I was in San Diego and I ended up, thank the Lord, going on essentially disability leave from my employer. So I would still get um, paid out from like disability insurance on a monthly basis. Not a lot, but it's better than nothing. And I would essentially, go to therapy and read and scour the internet for answers all day. I mean, like all day, blogs, anything you can think of. I was ingesting it, just trying to find answers. And there was so much trial and error. I mean, so many different things. I did celery juicing, I did water fasting, I did cognitive behavioral therapy, I did NLP, I did um, like literally I went to see like witch doctors. Like I tried everything, every diet, paleo, keto, vegan, vegetarian. And those these like individual stories I'll break down more later, but this is just more to share the entire journey as like a holistic picture, so you can kind of fill in the blanks, and hopefully I feel like this relates to you to some degree, so that maybe whatever you're going through, you're not alone, and that somewhere else in the world you have someone that's been exactly where you are now, offering like a glimpse of hope into the future. Because at that time in my life, I would have given anything for just someone to say, "Hey, like, no, seriously, I know what you're going through. It's gonna get better." Like, I would have given anything for that. Wow, I forget how intense this is. So, anyways, a year goes by and I'm not that much better. But I would literally go up, down, up, down. It was like I'd try something new, I'd feel really good, crash. Try something new, feel really good, crash. And so my parents and I were fighting quite a bit, and it was just really messy. And I ended up going online. And basically, what I wanted to do was just to go like live alone. Like, I just felt like I needed to get away from my family, from like, I love my friends, but I feel like a lot of people in their early 20s drink a lot. That's kind of like just what they choose to do. And I felt like I just needed to get away from all of that. And I wasn't drinking, but I just felt like it was hard for me to find like a circle where drinking wasn't part of like the social experience, and that was something I really needed. Was like I really needed to be away from alcohol, like out in nature. So I ended up finding an Airbnb with my sister actually that was like in the middle of nowhere in Missouri, and it was like dirt cheap, and it was just like a cabin, and it had a fireplace in it, and so I booked it for like 5 weeks, and moved out there, and literally it was the coolest thing ever. Like it was like, even though I didn't feel necessarily fully independent because I was depending on this, like disability insurance payment every month. Um, it was like, oh my gosh, like I can like make a decision in life again and kind of control my destiny. So I moved out to Missouri, middle of nowhere, don't know anyone, and pretty much all I did all day was continue to like research, read, but also I would go on these like crazy long hikes, like 10, 12 miles, just just wherever I could find trails, I would just go and hike and meditate a lot. I would sit by rivers, um, and just like think about life, pray. That was when I was already into meditation, but I got really into meditation out there. Meditation helped me tons. It's still something I do to this day. I feel like even if you're completely mentally well, it just helps you slow down and be less reactive to the world around you, which is a beautiful thing. But I'm in Missouri. I ended up staying. I initially was going to go for 5 weeks. I ended up staying out there for 6 months. I moved from the cabin to like a small apartment. Um, and it's just the people were super nice there. There was nature. It was like this little oasis, just trees all around. Um, and I could just be alone with my thoughts, which like in retrospect, like it kind of sounds crazy. Like I'm like, because I really don't love being alone, which is funny. So it was like to go out there and be alone. I'm like, wow, good on you, Chris. But that was a while ago. So, anyways, at this point in the journey, one thing I forgot to mention was that I had been reading all these books about pandas, specifically this book called Saving Sammy. And pandas was like, I think it's more well known now, but at the time it was like this relatively new condition. It was like an autoimmune condition where essentially like a strep infection can cause I think it's called autoencephalitis. It's essentially where like a strep infection can linger and interfere with your essentially brain's ability to function normally. And for some people, this can result in OCD. And when I read this book, I was like, oh my gosh, that is what, like, legitimately what happened to me. And I ended up getting my childhood medical records from my pediatrician. And, like, randomly, I don't know, the dates when I had gotten strep as a kid lined up perfectly with when the mental stuff set in. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, pandas, holy crap. I just need to, like, cure the pandas and I'll be good. Basically, just being my own doctor at this point. Um, which, um, well, not being my own doctor. I mean, I worked with a bunch of different like doctors that I could find and stuff to figure this out, but ended up on some super, super heavy dose antibiotics, like such heavy doses that even when I went to pick it up at the pharmacy, they were like, "This can't be right." And I did that for a while, and then this scientist that worked for this is going to sound crazy, but my dad had a friend who worked at a biotech company, and my dad told him what was going on. And he said he's got to talk to like one of our lead scientists. And so I talked to him, and he tells me about something called bacteriophage therapy. And I basically heard about it and thought, I got to try that. And it's like a pretty neat new revolutionary kind of therapy because like with antibiotics, it's kind of like nuking your gut. Like it kills everything down there, good, bad. And like bacteriophage therapy, the way it works is like they isolate these viruses from nature that target specific strains of bacteria, and you ingest them. You basically drink them like out of a vial, and so they only target like a specific kind of bacteria versus just like wiping out your whole ecosystem, your microbiome. So, anyways, I send this is like TMI, but I send this lab that like specializes in bacteriophage therapy a stool sample, and they're like, "Yep, your gut is so messed up." And at the time, I was like, "Okay, like I was basically like everything I thought was causing my mental health was physical. Like I was like, if I can just get my gut health right, like I'll be so good mentally." And so there it turns out like this is this is so random too, but one of the only countries in the world or that the first country to start studying like phages and bacteriophage therapy is Georgia, which I didn't even know was a country. That's how like arrogant I was or ignorant. Um, but so I start emailing back and forth with one of the centers over there that studies this kind of treatment, and they're like, "Hey, we would love to send you the treatment, but it keeps on getting held up at customs because this was always in the this was kind of like tail end of COVID, and so like things are opening back up and everything, but it was still I think because the treatment, the phage treatment, looked kind of like vaccines. It was like it kept on getting stopped. And so, anyways, I basically put my car in a storage unit in Missouri and booked a flight. It like crazy enough, it wasn't that expensive for me to fly to Tbilisi. And once you're there, the cost of living is significantly lower than the United States. So I fly there and I do this treatment and it doesn't work. And I was so bummed because like my bets were so high that like it was, due to the strep. And if we could like get rid of the strep, then like everything would basically go back to normal. And that just kind of shattered me that it didn't work. And I was like, fuck, excuse my language. Like, what now, essentially? And at that point, I'd learned so many things, like, meditation techniques, just all sorts of stuff that I had a bunch of tools to where I could live like pretty normally again. But it was still scary. It was still like I felt like at the mercy of the mental stuff. And the worst thing that could have possibly happened happened. And it was the one thing that actually ultimately like saved my life in the end. I caught COVID when I was overseas, and it sent me from like, doing okay mentally to this mental place that I didn't even know was possible. Um, and I didn't sleep. I couldn't fall asleep for like 4 days. Um, I couldn't fall asleep for no, it was 3 days. It was like 72, or I think it was like hour 76. Um, and I called the police at like hour 48, and they come. They don't speak English. They don't really know like what to do with me, or like they basically say that like they shut down all of their psychiatric hospitals. And so they give me like a sugar pill, and they're like, here, take this. And I also take this like over the counter anxiety med that they have there, and it doesn't do anything. And fortunately, I had a couple friends in Georgia, some really good friends that I'd made over there, and they were like, do not do anything rash, because I was thinking about it. I was walking around and I was just like, I think I'm literally just gonna die from lack of sleep. Like I haven't slept. I was literally like hallucinating at that point. Um, and I basically send this like goodbye message to my family and my friends, because it was that bad. And this is when things like completely changed. So my dad and I did not necessarily have like like a friendly relationship growing up. It was just very always like he was my dad, and like he would punish me, but we never really like talked about life or anything. And so I was always kind of, excuse me, afraid of him. And he literally flew all the way around the world to save my life. And so after hour 76, I called the police again, or I called the 911 again over there. They picked me up. They took me to, and there was one person on this ambulance that spoke a little bit of English, and I just begged her, begged her, begged her, begged her. I said, hey, please, like, do not leave. Like, I really need help. Like, please, I need like psychiatric help. Like, please take me to a hospital or anywhere. And they basically drove me like 45, or like it felt like an hour. Like they drove me for an hour somewhere, and were gonna like drop me off in this hospital because the other place wasn't open yet. And my phone had died. And I basically get there, and everyone is just like yelling, and I'm like, please don't leave me here. Please don't leave me here. And I'm like, please, can we just go to like the psychiatric hospital and just wait until it opens? Like my phone's dead. I have no clue where I am or how to get back. So they do that. We wait there until I think it was like 8 a.m. or something. Hospital opens, and they say at 10 a.m., by the grace of God, one of their psychiatrists there spoke like perfect English. And they basically say they're using like Google Translate on their phone. They're like, at 10 a.m. she gets here. So, and this place was terrifying. It was a really scary situation. It's like, like post-Soviet Union era, like psychiatric hospital. So, oy, 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 oy. So she comes and we talk, and she says, hey, I can't admit you to the hospital, which thank the Lord they couldn't, because I think that would have been a nightmare. But she says, what was the medication you taken before? And I told her, like, Ativan. And she basically gives me just like the maximum dose she could give me. And she basically was like, here, good luck. Like, you're going to be okay. Gives it to me, and I begged the ambulance because they were trying to leave me there. And I was like, no, please just take me back to the city center. They take me back. I get home. I take the Ativan, fall asleep for like 18 hours, wake up, and my dad is there and comes and just like saves my life fully. He's like, I'm getting you out of here. And essentially, what made the panic and stuff so bad, it was like every sound, like it was like all of the mental stuff I'd ever dealt with came back alive times a thousand. It was insane. And so I basically was wearing earplugs and headphones to fall asleep at night. Ended up finding a psychiatrist in Tbilisi in like the city center that spoke English and was able to get me prescribed medications so I could stay on them. And I was just crying, like I couldn't stop crying this entire time, just sobbing. Literally wake up, the only thing I could eat without like throwing up was cornflakes and peaches. And so my dad would just go out and get cornflakes and peaches for me every day, and that's what I would eat. And him and I, this was like really when things started to turn. So it basically was him and I just like we chatted through so much and we fought and we like yelled at each other and basically just like became best friends. And he was like, I'm not like letting you go like this. Like we're gonna figure this out. Like you gotta hang on. And just was like the reason that I hung on out there. So we end up after I passed COVID, we fly to we fly back home, and it took me probably 6 months to get from being in my bedroom stuck wearing earplugs and headphones 24/7 to actually being able to like go outside and take my headphones off. And the journey in between there was crazy. I learned so many things, but the biggest thing that happened was after that experience, my family was like, "This is no joke." It was like my dad, for the first time, saw how bad it was, and he was, "I'm just gonna move this around. Like, why don't I just move this here?" Yay! Now front and center. It's like he saw for the first time, this is not a joke. He's not making this up, and I think that really shifted the dynamic. Um, I felt supported and like genuinely loved, which is just like a life changing thing. And I essentially just kind of worked my way back to. Oh, actually, no, sorry, I almost forgot. So my dad ended up on this misophonia forum and found out about this guy Owen, who completely changed my perspective on everything. This guy had gotten over his misophonia completely using NLP techniques, and this was like the guy that basically taught me your battle is not in your gut. It's in your mind, and I'm gonna give you the tools to help you fight it in your mind, which is why this channel is called Mental Martial Arts, because that's a lot of what I write and talk about. And once I started talking to him, he kind of took me under his wing and just helped me realize like the worst thing you could do, which is ironically exactly what I did, is go move, shut yourself off from the world and say, I'll go do whatever X, Y, and Z when I feel better. And it's like it should be the opposite. Like go start doing something, however small it is, and you'll slowly build confidence and momentum and you'll start to feel better and better and better. And so basically what I did is once I reached a certain point where I was like, okay, I can take my headphones off, I started going to yoga. It was like a low barrier to entry, but it was like around people, it was freaky, like closed room. It was tough. I pretty much bawled my eyes out every single class, which was not easy to do. Like crying in front of other people was flippin' terrifying for me at the time. It was like something I felt so ashamed of. I think a lot of men feel ashamed of. It's like, men don't cry. But I started going to yoga every day, and that was literally what like kicked off this newfound version of me with this attitude of like I'm gonna go live the best I can, however small, however little, like baby steps. So I started walking a lot every day, like multiple, like a mile at first, and then multiple miles, and then I started running, and I would just do as much as I could. And it was like at this point that everything really started to come to fruition, and for the first time in my life, I basically was like, holy crap, like I can overcome this and like get back to normal, and that changed everything for me. And the biggest thing uh, that I want to leave you on, because this is like the story up until like 2 years ago. Like there's so many more topics and parts and intricacies of this story that I want to share with you. I really just wanted to share this so you kind of understand like the pre-story, which I don't know how good of a storyteller I've been. This is really emotionally charged for me, so I try my best just to keep it together and hopefully you learn something. But the that mindset of like do the things however small, however little, start to build confidence. Don't shut yourself off until you feel better. start doing something, anything, you'll slowly start to feel a little bit better. And then, it's like do it first, then you'll feel good. And I think like what I would have done differently is just realize that like there's that analogy about the flower pot where it's like if a if a flower is dying, you don't tell it to feel better and put it on pills or anything. You change its soil, its location, you give it more light. And I think I wish I would have thought about my life more like that at the time. Like, okay, location, job, like what is it that's creating this environment where I don't feel good on a daily basis? But anyways, fast forward like 5 years to now, and I'm so much better. I have a job that I love. I have an awesome girlfriend. I live in Austin, Texas. Um, and I would say I'm not 100% better, but I am 99% better than where I was in 2021. That is for sure. Oh my God. Like if you saw me in 2021 and you saw me now, you would be like, that is not the same person. Like, it's literally the starkest contrast. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone's gonna watch this far, but I just wanted to post this so maybe if my kids one day watch this, they'll know. And hopefully you feel less alone in your journey. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions about certain parts of the story. I'm going to be sharing more like structured videos with like specific tips and guidance. I know this one was just kind of like a vent session, but yeah, and I don't know why I recorded this on Loom. It was just easiest to do it on Loom, but maybe I should use like my phone or something next time. But hang in there. Whatever you're going through, hang in there. I promise you, there's a solution out there for you. And do not like never give up hope. Never. It's so hard sometimes when you've tried so many things and you just don't feel like you're getting any better. But I promise you, things will get better. It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of trial and error. And eventually you find something and it clicks and it works for you. And then you get to a place where, like, there's been so many moments the past few years where I'm like, I cannot believe I ever thought about taking myself, you know? That is just crazy. All right. And on that note, love you. Talk soon. Ciao.